The year is 2016. Nintendo, the company that made gaming consoles ubiquitous items in homes across the world, is on the brink of being left behind. The century-plus-old Japanese business had reported 3 consecutive yearly losses, and their current console, the Wii U, had sold 86% fewer units when compared to their previous console, the Wii. While Nintendo's software remained solid, much of the company's policies and hardware choices began to feel like they took place in a vacuum, intentionally avoiding outside innovation and stubbornly trudging forward in their traditional but dated methodologies. I had grown up on Nintendo classics, but even their storied franchises weren't enough to justify their poor business practices and lack of attention towards their most loyal fans. Frustrated by the current position of the company, many investors, and myself included, wondered if Nintendo would be forced to follow in the footsteps of Sega and focus exclusively on developing software for other technically superior platforms like the Xbox and PlayStation going forward. But Nintendo, as stubborn as ever, didn't listen. Later in 2016, rumors began to swirl about Nintendo's new console, codenamed the NX, which would eventually become the Nintendo Switch. It was a half-portable, half-home console with HD graphics and a detachable controller. And just a couple months later, the full details were revealed. During this hour-long presentation, Nintendo showcased all the ins and outs of their new console, with both good and bad details coming to light. There were some great games revealed, but internally, I questioned the viability of the hardware. Was there really enough horsepower here to compete? Would third-party developers really flock to this hybrid platform? And what about these prices? $79 for Joy-Cons seems pretty expensive. Truthfully, the Switch felt make or break for Nintendo, and leading up to the final few minutes, I was still on the fence about the console. But as the closing minutes of the presentation ensued, one final announcement nearly quelled all my fears and doubts. To close, Nintendo presented a sweeping trailer for the long-awaited Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild game, a new open-world project nearly 5 years in the making, and one that continues arguably the most revered series in video games. When it aired, I'd only been a casual fan of the franchise, but something was different about this trailer. Everything about the preview seemed to communicate that this was Nintendo's ace in the hole, putting all the soul-stirring emotion, all the wonder, and all the magic of the company's most revered franchises into one final trailer that would launch Nintendo's make-or-break system. This finale alone was nearly enough to convince me to buy the system, and when the game launched to universal acclaim, the reception just pushed me over the edge. And on March 3rd, 2017, exactly 5 years ago from this very day, my highest hopes from that incredible trailer were ultimately vindicated. When playing Breath of the Wild for the first time, one word kept popping into my head: simplification. In the same way Apple simplified the smartphone's countless buttons, tacky plastics, and unintuitive user interfaces into a sleek and easy-to-use piece of kit, Breath of the Wild refined and rediscovered exploration in the open-world genre. While open-world games have created some of the most critically acclaimed and lauded entries, titles of which I routinely play and enjoy, over time, its developers seem to become obsessed with density, excess, and fidelity over the purpose of why this genre was created in the first place: freedom. These games are constantly bombarding me with waypoints, side missions, and parameters that tell me exactly how and what I should and could be doing at any given moment, railroading me into a purposely forged experience where predestined linearity and excessive stimuli take preference over my feeling of self-discovery and intuitive exploration. Graphically and narratively, many of these titles remain extremely impressive, Even some of their gameplay is fun and exciting, but often their open worlds feel as if they were conceived in the background of their design philosophies, resulting in beautiful and vast wonderlands constrained under the practical scope of their own ambitious scale. Breath of the Wild addresses this issue head-on. It's not that Zelda makes the genre larger or more detailed as to justify its own open world. It's that every sightline, every puzzle, and every inch of the environment felt purpose-built to prod at my imagination and will to explore. Paramount to enabling this is the interplay between the game's free climbing and player-controlled waypoint systems. Very rarely in Breath of the Wild does the game feed you an exact mission marker on your adventure, and if it does, it never gives you a pre-planned route to get there. Instead, the game gives players a viewfinder of sorts to seek out areas of interest and mark them on their own personal maps, which fill in as you find new places. Each destination then feels user-generated, and it makes experiences and discoveries in the open world feel natural and intimate. Since so much of my path planning in Breath of the Wild was based on my own waypoints, climbing up structures and tall mountains proved incredibly valuable to seek out new vantage points and places of intrigue. This mechanic in itself is fun and challenging, and it lets me scale structures in spontaneous and creative ways. Plus, as I climbed higher and higher, irregularities would pop into my periphery and distract me from whatever initial path I was on. Some may find the game's lack of intended structure daunting and unfocused, but I found the exact opposite. It felt liberating to play, like veering from a rigid set of instructions to build something beautiful and completely my own. While the freedom of traversal is paramount in Breath of the Wild, it only embodies half of the gameplay formula. Parallel to the pathfinding is a consistent and expansive sandbox of game mechanics for the player to experiment with. These are relatively simple elements on their own, but when they're used in conjunction with one another, the possibilities become expansive. Rain affects your footing when climbing. Fire burns grass, trees, and wooden objects around you. Metal and water can conduct electricity. Flames keep you warm in cold environments, whereas shade keeps the player cool in the heat. Wind blows objects around. Snowballs gain size as they roll down hills, and so on, and so on, and so on. Each chemical and physical element or system in Breath of the Wild functions with one another to create elaborate and inventive scenarios that kept surprising me with their depth and integrity. Even at the start of Breath of the Wild, when I had to travel into my first freezing territory, I noticed the extreme variety of tactics that these interwoven systems created. I could make a fire potion to climb this cold mountain. That would work, but what if instead I carried a torch? Then I wouldn't have to find the necessary resources and a cooking pot. But then I'd also be more vulnerable to enemies who attack me because I have to hold the torch. Better yet, what if I found clothes that could protect me from these elements? But then I would have to find somebody to trade with and enough money to do so with. Ultimately, I just wasn't this savvy the first time I played the game, and so for this passage, I just stored a lot of food in my pockets and scarfed it down as Link got colder as he traveled up the mountain. But that's completely fine, and it's kind of the point. You learn as you go with Breath of the Wild, and the game constantly begs you to push its systems farther and farther without explaining exactly what you should do. This creates a nearly endless list of experiences that you just have to go through to understand. Like the first time I encountered a thunderstorm and didn't know why my metal weapon was flashing. It's these moments that make the developers of Breath of the Wild feel invisible and makes the player feel kind of like a genius. Not just another person following predetermined solutions, but rather an active participant using a set of tools to find their own answers. For a series, and even a company that often cripples players with long tutorials and kid-friendly games, Breath of the Wild feels revelatory to play and enables something I rarely find in games of this scale: trust. trust that I can find my own way forward without the frequent metaphorical hand-holding that the genre has become known for. And this made every moment of curious experimentation intimately rewarding and personally fulfilling. While the gameplay in Breath of the Wild is overflowing with excitement and energy, the game's art direction is conversely quiet, abstract, and beautiful, balancing playability with pseudo-realism in an often stunning fashion. A typical AAA open world's extreme fidelity is often impressive and immersive, especially in some notable entries, but it's also made identifying interactive game elements more challenging for the player. The solution is often a vision highlighter or scan pulse ability that reveals enemies, resources, and clues to the player. At times, it can add to the experience, like when I engage enemies and discover their weak points, but in traversal and puzzle solving, this ability often streamlines gameplay and makes puzzle solving rigid and uninspired. Artistically, it also breaks my immersion with the world because I'm constantly having to be scanning in and out to understand or accomplish anything. Breath of the Wild circumvents the need for this type of gameplay mechanic through its simplified yet focused art style. Whether it be the twinkle of a resource I'm walking by or the vague smoke cloud that appears when an item's state transforms, the game chooses to streamline its visuals so interactive gameplay elements stand out, leading to a more seamless and intuitive open world. But that isn't to say that the game isn't visually impressive, because Breath of the Wild is often stunning. The game's breezy fields, sun-splashed skylines, and stony ruins convey a tranquil yet dormant land of mystery and wonder. What the game may lack in visual polygons, it makes up for with emotionally resonant imagery throughout each locale. There's almost a reverence for nature and the outside world that feels rarely captured in the medium. Supplementary to the vistas and environments are Link's animations that brim with personality and enthusiasm. I love how he excitedly watches his meals cook, or the way he shivers in the freezing cold, or how he slowly pants in the bleeding sun. Plenty of these animations bring a smile to your face, while also giving you a visual aid that helps in gameplay. The way Link glares at resources, characters, and enemies is a prime example. Of course, all these visuals are backed by the sounds of Breath of the Wild. The music in much of the world is extremely ambient, fading into the background of whatever task the player is accomplishing, and the various sounds of nature that are constantly swirling around you. Most of the time during my travels through Hyrule, I could only make out a few piano notes, but these sparse keys help substantiate the free-flowing and tranquil open world. While times of traversal are quiet, the towns and other important destinations receive more standalone compositions that dazzle without overdoing the game's delicacy. The Temple of Time, Fairy Fountain, and Rito Village stand out as favorites of mine. Researching for this video, I stumbled across a Nintendo website that outlined the company's mission statement. I was expecting a pretty dry corporate jumble of sentences, but I got something far different. It states, Nintendo's mission is to put a smile on the face of everyone we touch. An idea that helped me understand why I was wrong to doubt Nintendo 5 years ago. While other companies continue pushing polygons and technical barriers, Nintendo, like usual, chooses to walk a different path, one that reflects the company's simple goal wholeheartedly. It doesn't matter if the hardware is underpowered, so long as the experience on the platform is emotionally powerful, thought-provoking, and most of all, fun. This most recent Zelda exemplifies this, and it's a game that helped me rediscover a childlike curiosity and wonder that felt sorely missed after I found it. 5 years ago, on this very day, just as the Switch rekindled Nintendo's fading voice in the industry, Breath of the Wild harnessed the imagination and excitement that makes interactive media such a powerful art form. And 5 years since, no game's been quite so impactful or magical.